Hello everyone and welcome to the Chef's Table series. My name is Carol O'Connor, co-host of this instructional educational show. Today we are featuring Chef John Mahoney of Isabella restaurant located in Dedham Square. He is going to show us and my co-host Joe Murphy how to make this dish in front of me. A dry rub duck breast with a crispy duck leg served with charred broccoli rabe and fingerling potatoes, and the best part, the Agro Dolce sauce. And then from there we'll have other segments as well as part of the show. So let's go over to my co-host Joe Murphy and Chef John at Mother Brook Arts and Community Center to learn how to make this delicious dish.
Hi, I'm Chef Joe Murphy. I am the co-host of the Chef's Table series, and tonight we have a wonderful restaurant from Dedham. I almost used the word historic, but amazingly, they've been there for 19 years, and I've got to tell you, the place is packed all the time. But before we get to the restaurant and Chef John Mahoney, I want to thank the Mother Brook Arts and Community Center on High Street in Dedham. If you are a creative personality person and you love art, then this is a great place. And we really want to thank them for hosting this show, and we look forward to doing several more shows with them. So, having said that, the show is produced by the Chef's Table Foundation, which was formed so that we could produce shows on public access stations. But it's turned into a much more important mission for Carol O'Connor, our co-host, and myself. We are supporting U.S. veterans that are homeless, as well as young people that are underprivileged or homeless that have a high school or GED diploma. And if they have a passion, in cooking is, if you don't have a passion, there's no way you would become a professional chef. Would you agree with that?
I totally agree with that.
This is hard work, but very creative and rewarding. So the Chef Table Foundation is looking forward to supporting 5 candidates, U.S. homeless veterans, #1, and then the 18-year-olders in the second position, but we still care about them, and we will pay for a $40,000 education at a very good culinary school in Boston. So we appreciate you watching the show, and why don't we get cooking? So, Chef, what are we making today?
Today we're making a duck two ways. It's a dry rub duck breast, crispy duck leg, broccoli rabe, and fingerling potatoes.
Excellent. I love all those. In preparing for this show, and talking to people that would come and said, I'm just afraid of duck, I've never eaten it. And to me, if it's cooked properly, it's almost like eating a great piece of steak or beef tenderloin. It's a dark meat, right? And duck fat, it gives off a lot of fat, but you cook that off in the process.
Yep.
Am I correct?
Yep.
But I know some chefs that reserve that fat and they'll use it in different recipes to enhance their flavor. Is that something that you would do yourself?
Yeah, we have about 4 or 5 gallons in the restaurant pretty much at all times.
Wow, that's great. So, that gives you, the home chef, a tip. Don't waste anything. Don't be afraid to store the duck fat. It's not like you're going to be eating it every night and wind up a cholesterol factory. You use it, I'm guessing you could freeze it.
Yep.
And then just take out a tablespoon or whatever. If you're going to fry in it, that's a different story. But do you use it more for a taste, to add a flavor?
More of a flavor, to infuse a flavor to it. We confit a lot of items with it.
Right. Okay, that's great. So, confit.
Confit means to cook in its own fats.
Okay, great. So, we always talk about mise en place. a French term, and in every professional kitchen, if you do not have a mise en place, you're going to miss a beat, and your finished product will lose flavor. So what is mise en place? It means everything in its place. And as you can see, Chef has
I think 14.
14.
Yep.
And if you wouldn't mind just pointing to each one and explaining what you have there.
Okay. These ingredients that I have here are for the dry rub that goes on the duck breast. Some of the ingredients you can get combined, so you don't have to carry all these at your house, and I can explain that a little bit later. The ingredients that we have here is granulated garlic, or garlic powder,
Right.
smoked paprika,
Nice.
fennel seed,
Great.
onion powder,
Wow.
ground clove, ground ginger, mustard seed, brown sugar, chili flake, nutmeg, cinnamon, regular paprika or Spanish paprika, parsley flake, and coriander.
Wow. Now, Chef, these are all dry ingredients. For instance, the ginger, that's a dry,
Yep, it's
okay,
dry
so
ground.
everything's dry. You know, there's a great, a very well-known spice company. I won't say the name, but I don't think it's improper to say, with all these, we're going to start Mahoney's. Huh?
Maybe.
Yeah, so you said that a lot of these ingredients already come combined, is that correct?
Yeah, with the cinnamon, the nutmeg, and the clove, you can get already pre-mixed in an apple spice or a pumpkin pie spice.
Okay.
So therefore, you don't have to carry 4 or 5 different spices. You can go to the cupboard and get the little container.
Yeah, I have a drawer full, I mean a big drawer full of spices. I lay them down so I can see the label. And half of them, you know, they just sit there for a year, and then 3 years later I'll say, gee, when did I get this? So that's great if, you know, for you, the home chef, because obviously spices and herbs are expensive, that you can get combined ingredients. All right, what's next, Chef?
What we're going to do is we're actually going to build the sauce, which is the cherry agro dolce,
Okay,
and we're going to combine the ingredients into our sauce pot.
okay, excellent. You want to go to it?
Yep. Low heat.
Yeah, and by the way, this is the finished dry rub
Yep.
combination.
You can take the dry rub and either put it into a coffee grinder or a blender and then just run it through a sieve. Therefore, you don't get any chunks. You don't have any of the fennel seed that will get caught in the back of your throat when you're eating.
Right.
So,
That's a great tip. But if somebody did have all these herbs and spices, they could do the combination and probably put it in a good-sized jar, correct?
yep, you can do it ahead of time. We do a lot of bases in the restaurant where we'll keep the garlic powder, the onion powder, a salt, pepper mixture, and let's say smoked paprika and
Yeah.
regular paprika. We'll reserve that, and then we're making other dishes combined off of that.
Okay. Smoked paprika
Yep.
and paprika.
Yep.
So there's 2 different varieties,
Yep.
correct?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any country of origin that you prefer? I know one chef likes it from Spain, the smoked.
Spanish paprika is usually the way that we sort of lean at the restaurant.
So you could make a big jar and store it in a tight container, and you can use this on other recipes besides duck, right?
Yep. I add a little bit more sugar to this recipe, and I use it when I dry rub pork butt. You can put it onto a roast if you were roasting something, whether it be pork or lamb or anything,
Right.
into the oven. Just whatever flavor profile that you want to go with that.
Yeah. The worst that'll happen if the food is a disaster and it tastes terrible, when you sit down, your family will throw it at you. But you'll know the next time to make a few adjustments in the recipe. All right, Chef, enough about me and ducking from the food fight. What's going on here?
Okay, so we're going to build the sauce first. The sauce
Right.
that we're making today is a cherry agro dolce. Agro dolce means sweet and sour in Italian. It's basically a vinegar and sugar reduction.
Oh, cool.
So what we're going to take here is 1 cup of red wine vinegar, add it to the saucepan. 1 cup of dried cherries. You can also use fresh cherries. When you're making this, you would just have to add a little bit more sugar to it because they seem to be a little bit more tart than the dried.
Right, right.
1 cup of regular sugar, 2 to 3 cups of regular water, and then 1 shallot and 1 sprig of thyme.
You know, a question came before we started airing the show. You know, yeah, I'd love to be able to make some of these great recipes. But, you know, time, you know, I don't have time to stand in the kitchen preparing the dinner 2 or 3 hours in advance. So the rub, we know we can make that, stir it in a tight jar, and you can just break it out anytime you want to use a rub. You can make an adjustment if you want to use pork, add a little bit more sugar, correct? Now, what about your sauce? Can that hold up in the refrigerator for?
Yep, I mean, we hold our sauces for a week sometimes in the restaurant, but we turn a lot of the stuff over. But if I make stuff at home, it could be a week to 2 weeks.
Okay.
Especially where there's vinegar in this sauce, it will last a while.
Yeah, and the vinegar is a pH, it's an acid, so that's going to help preserve the product, right?
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, do you bring this to a boil or a simmer or?
It doesn't have to come to a boil. I usually leave it over a medium heat and then reduce it by half.
By half. Next.
Yes, the next stage, what we're going to do is we're going to clean duck breast. It sounds very unapproachable, but it's very easy to do. Something that you shouldn't be afraid to do at home.
Right. Okay.
So I'm going to use these rubber gloves here.
Yeah.
Don't want to cross-contaminate anything, get anybody sick when I'm doing this.
All right.
You can also find duck breast at a butcher shop or local supermarkets. Local butchers will break the duck down for you, so you can get the duck legs, the duck breast already clean, so you don't have to do all the steps yourself.
Right.
So we're going to take here, duck breast, it's 2 pieces. We're going to split it in half, and then we're going to clean off the silver skin, and then we're going to score the meat.
Okay. So when you talk about the silver skin, you're talking about that fiber on, there you go, okay,
Yep.
right.
You'll also find that in pork, and when you're cleaning pork, it's that gristly piece on the pork that you eat that you can't really get through, but you don't know why you're getting that and why you can't get through it. That essentially is silver skin.
Right.
So we're just going to split that in half. I'm going to put one of these up here, and I'm going to go to the first one. What this is the tenderloin of the duck. We're going to take that off just because it's not going to cook that evenly. I like to eat those. I like to saute those and make a sandwich myself when we're in the restaurant. That's kind of the special stuff that we get for doing all the work in the kitchen that the customers don't get usually. So, and what we're going to do here, very simple. We're taking a boning knife and we're going to put it up under the silver skin. When you're cleaning any meat or poultry and you got silver skin, the key to it is putting it underneath it and then turning the knife up at an angle just slightly and running the knife along that. And then therefore it comes right off.
It's almost like skinning a fish fillet.
Almost on the same idea.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of the blood.
Right.
You'll get that sometimes when you have veins.
Right. And you know, a sharp knife is a chef's best friend. Do not be afraid. I think a lot of home chefs use, it's almost like a chisel before they may think about sharpening that knife. A sharp knife makes a huge difference in your cooking experience.
What I'm doing here is taking the fat. If you flip the duck breast over, you can see there's fat that's going to go past the duck breast. When you're cooking, you want to render this fat down. The more fat that you have, the longer it's going to take to cook, the more fat that you have in the pan. This is actually just eliminating that process. So we're going to cut pretty much in line with it. Follow the shape of the duck breast.
It's a great tip chef is giving you. So that fat is overlaying your actual breast.
We save the fat, we'll render that down, and we use it for all sorts of stuff at the restaurant, but most people at home won't be using as much of it.
Right.
And I talked about scoring the meat before, of the duck breast. This is a process of putting basically grid marks into your meat. When you put it into a pan, or if you put a piece of fish into a pan and it starts to seize up, that way you don't get an even sear on the piece of meat or the fish. This helps to prevent that. It helps for an even cooking flat surface. So we're going to take it, we're going to go right down to the meat itself. You don't want to cut into the meat.
So you're just cutting through the fat.
Yep, essentially right through the fat, making little diamond shapes right down to the end. As you can see, we didn't go into the meat,
Right.
and now that one is ready.
Excellent.
And I'll do the other one really quick, and then we're going to dry rub that, and we can start rendering down the fat.
Excellent. Now, I just want to make a comment about this fat that he cut away and the tenderloin. There's a famous chef, his name is Jacques Papin, and he one time was showing me something about duck crackling, which is the fat. And he put it on a rack in a sheet pan, the fat, and baked it until it turned into a crispy skin. There was really no mush. It was just a nice crispy skin. Take that tenderloin, saute it, add that crackling, take a little green onion like a scallion, okay? Put like a sweet type sauce on that. You've got a great sandwich.
Yes. I actually had a chicken skin BLT on my last restaurant.
Oh, no kidding.
On the menu. Yes.
Wow.
I'll do anything with fat.
Right.
So essentially we're ready to start rendering down the duck breast. It does take about 15 minutes to render down the fat. So while your sauce is going, we're going to dry rub the duck breast. We're not going to dry rub the skin because that will start to burn when it's cooking. We're only going to dry rub the meat of the duck.
Okay.
And we're not going to sear that until we're ready to finish that dish. What we're going to take is our prepared dry rub that we have here,
Right.
which is all of our 14 ingredients that I showed you earlier. And we're just going to take this and put this in. Don't need to move it around. And we're just going to leave it right there. And now at this point, we're going to turn on our induction burner to a medium heat. When you're cooking duck, there's so much fat inside the skin, we do not need to add oil to this dish at all.
Right.
We're going to use the natural oils from the skin to make this dish.
Yeah, and I'm glad Chef just told you that. Would you have this, that there's enough fat in that duck skin that you don't need to put an oil to stop it from sticking? But the question I have is, would you say that's the same with chicken, or would you use a little bit?
I would definitely use oil with chicken.
Right, because it's not as much fat.
Yeah, I think it's about a 20% difference in fat. Don't quote me, I'm not a scientist.
Right. Okay, then another question I have. We're letting this saute pan warm up. You want that smoking hot when you put that skin side down?
No, we do not want it smoking hot. We're actually going to add it into it right now as it's starting to heat up.
Okay.
The hotter the pan is, same when you're cooking fish, you're going to sear this. This will buckle up, so it'll create like a bridge. When that happens, you will not be able to get a flat, crispy surface on that piece.
Oh, great. That's a great tip.
So we're going to take that, shake off the excess. Anytime you're flouring something or putting dry rub on anything, before you add it to a pan, you always want to shake off the excess.
Right.
I'm just putting that right in there, and I'm going to pat this little bit of dry rub that got on there off.
Okay. Yeah, Chef just gave you another great tip. You know, if I'm flouring, if I'm going to make a cutlet or a piccata, you know, flour, egg, you want to knock off that extra flour.
Yep.
I mean, it will clump up and you'll see it. Takes a little longer to cook, and you know, so Chef just gave you another great tip. Make sure you shake that excess off.
Right. It's also bad for the oil when you're cooking too. The more flour or excess that you have into the pan, the less life that you'll get out of the oil.
Another great tip. You're just full of the good old tips, buddy.
Hey, I practiced. I warmed up. I mean, you're the
Ver-
professional. I wanted to
very
keep up
good.
with you today. So
All
we're
right.
actually going to turn this sauce down a little bit. It's really going to town, as you can see. And we're going to just turn it down a little bit.
Right. You want to simmer almost like a
Yep,
braising liquid?
We're going to let that simmer, and that's going to reduce by half.
Okay.
It's not going to get thick. This is a very thin sauce to go with the duck. And it's kind of very sweet. It's got a little acidity to it, which is going to offset some of the spices that we have from the dry rub.
Right. So again, there's that creative process. You know, he's offsetting. In Asian cooking, if you talk to an Asian chef, and I don't care if you're Chinese, Thai, Cambodian, Vietnamese, everything is about balance. So Chef just said, you know, this sauce has some sweetness to it, so it's going to balance your finished dish. So there's a great tip, and we can't share too much. They may not come back to the restaurant.
I think they'll still come back, though.
Oh, good.
Because
Okay.
I know I don't want to make this at home every night.
Right,
I'd rather
I
go to the
know.
restaurant and have me make it because I'm there.
That's right. And now I can tell you the duck aroma cooking smells really great.
Yeah, it's very floral smell to it. And it also almost smells like autumn because you do have the coriander, you have the cumin, you have the nutmeg, the cinnamon. So it almost smells like an apple pie without the apple pie.
Excellent. Very good. I love duck breast myself, and I look forward to trying this afterwards. Now, what were you going to do with the duck legs? Was that a different technique? Or?
The duck legs, it's a product, it's called confit duck legs. What essentially that is an ancient way of curing meats or products, because before we had Bel Air, Refrigerator, before we had electricity, we had to find a way to actually keep meat safe and preserved. And what they would do is pack something in salt, which helped extract the moisture and also the microorganisms, so people didn't eventually get sick.
Right. Great. So, did you pack these
That duck's
duck
angry.
legs a year ago, or?
No, what we did is we got the duck legs in from the company that we get our meat from,
Yeah.
Canelli Meats, and we took them and we cured them with a little bit of salt, sugar, thyme, garlic, black peppercorns, coriander, mustard seed, and packed that in salt and let it sit in the restaurant for 2 days.
Wow.
What that does is pulls away all the moisture, and then we confit that, which is what we talked about earlier, cooking in duck fat, and we cook that for about 2.5 hours.
Wow. In the oven.
In the oven.
In the oven,
Yep.
right. Wow, excellent. Yeah, I used to cure a lot of meats myself. A number of years ago, I used to cure prosciuttos, soprassadas, which is the hard Italian salami. As you said, the salt stopped anything really from going through it.
Another helpful hint is you can go to the supermarket, and they already have confit duck legs in the supermarket.
Really?
Or you can ask the butcher. So you can save another step right there.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, now, this is at, would you call a medium heat?
Yeah, it's a medium heat, probably about 5 minutes into the cooking process. As you can see, as I just tested, it's not really peeling off the pan.
Yeah.
That's another note whenever you're grilling something or sauteing something. If you try to lift the product and it's stuck to the pan, it means it's not ready to move.
Right.
It means leave me alone, do not touch me, and come back in a couple minutes. I'll be ready to go then.
Right, right.
But this is starting to come up
Okay.
now. So we're going to let that go for another minute or so.
Right. And I don't know if we can see this, but he used no oil when he put this in. And Chef explained the reason being there is enough fat that will produce its own oil or fat, if you will. So you can see that it's actually working. And I've got to tell you that the aromas and some of those herbs and spices within that duck fat, that smells fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, loving it. Okay, so now on the confit duck legs.
Yep.
What do you do? These are pretty much, are they cooked?
Yep, they're cooked all the way. So they've been cured for 2 days, and then we cook them for about 3 hours. We confit them in their own fats.
Okay.
So they're ready to go. You can eat them cold. I've done confit duck leg sandwiches.
Right.
Instead of doing chicken salad, you do a confit chicken. You can put cherries into it, cranberries, make another application for this product. So you can have a secondary meal with your leftovers.
Right, that's great. So you said you cooked this 3.5 to 4 hours, and it's completely covered with the duck fat. You cover the pan with aluminum foil, so in a sense it's braising and tenderizing, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so that's why you're cooking it for so long, because you're really tenderizing this duck fat. The duck meat, and it must fall right off the bone when it's done.
Yeah, pretty much. That's how we know in the restaurant that it is ready to go. You can see the back part of the duck. The skin has started to separate. When that starts to separate, we pretty much know it's ready to go. But like a piece of chicken or turkey, when it's roasted, take the leg and spin it. When it's hot, if that bone spins, you're good to go.
Oh, so there's a great tip. How do you know when it's done? Grab the bone, spin it. If it spins freely, you know it's done. You may have burnt your fingertips, but hey, you're going to have a great duck leg, right?
Hey, that's why I grabbed a pair of tongs, though.
There you go. All right, that sounds great, Chef. I see you have fingerling potatoes.
Yep, what we did with those fingerling potatoes, we just cut them in half, a little oil, salt, and pepper, right inside the oven, and roasted them for about 20 to 25 minutes.
You know, we had a well-known chef on almost a year ago, and he actually boiled his fingerling potatoes in olive oil. And I had never heard of that technique, but they were delicious. And I figured the potatoes would be very oily, but they were fabulous.
Yeah, I mean, another concept that you could do when you're making this dish is if you stop probably about an hour and a half into the duck legs cooking,
Yeah.
take those fingerling potatoes and throw them right into that same pan. You're confying the potatoes the same way.
Right, yeah,
So therefore, it's a one-pot cook.
right. So how is our duck breast doing here?
Duck breast is doing pretty good. It looks like it's starting to come up.
Yeah,
Still needs a little bit longer before we flip those over.
okay.
But as you can see,
Oh, nice.
there's almost no fat. The fat's reduced by about half the amount that it was before. And you're starting to get a crust. It's actually going to be really crispy on the outside of that duck fat.
Wow.
It's a nice texture.
Right.
I personally love fat, whether it be ribeye or anything else.
Yeah.
My wife is freaked out by me eating this stuff,
Yeah.
but I'll eat it.
Right. I'm with you. I mean, it's very flavorful. In the old days, everybody ate tons of beef. You don't see that anymore. If I have a piece of prime rib or any kind of a steak and it's cooked and that fat is cooked, I love it. Yeah.
I go to town.
Exactly. Yeah, me too. So that's great. Now, on your fingerling, could you boil these
Yep.
just before tender, and then put them in your cook along with your duck breast?
Yep, you can boil them ahead of time. You can boil them the day before. You can sear them a little bit and then pick them back up in the oven if you needed to.
Right. This is great, and I can see even the dry rub, even though it's on top, looks like it's caramelizing a little bit.
It's going to caramelize a little bit because the sugars in it and the natural sugars of the protein are actually coming out a little bit.
Right. And caramelization really is bringing the sugars out, and that's building a flavor.
Yep.
So it's all about building a cuisine. All right, Chef, are we getting close? Now, would you throw these potatoes in here at this point? Or
No, at this point, we're actually going to put the duck legs in there, and we're going to sear them inside that duck fat. We're actually going to build this entire dish in that pan.
Wow.
Also, as you were saying about making it ahead of time, you can render the fat down on this, and instead of searing it, you can sear it another day. So if you wanted to do it on a Sunday when you have the day off, but you want to have this on a Monday or Tuesday, you can render down this fat ahead of time, and then pull it back out and sear this, and then pick it up right in the oven. And it's about a 5 to 7 minute pickup instead of a 20-25 minute pickup.
Excellent.
Doesn't always have to be done that day.
Right.
You got to plan ahead, especially if you have kids or full-time jobs or other stuff that you have to take care of first.
Okay. So you're going to put this duck leg in here.
Yep.
Okay. Skin side down.
Yep.
Okay.
Move that over just a little bit.
Yep.
And as you can see, there's about 3 times the amount of fat that there was when we showed you a couple minutes ago.
Right. Right. Now, what would be a portion size? A half of the breast? Or
Well, if you're asking me, I'm quite large man.
You're a two-breast man.
That's one portion for me, which is 2 legs and 2 breasts.
Okay.
For the restaurant, generally it's about a duck breast and a duck leg with all the accompaniments. Usually you figure about anywhere from 6 to 8 ounces of protein per person. So what the average person will consume in a meal.
Yeah.
But if you're going to have duck, I would definitely eat a little bit more than normal.
Right. It smells fabulous. Now, once you cook off the duck legs, the fat, and that gets a little bit of color and caramelization, do you turn it over and do the bottom, or just on the skin side?
I turn it over and do the bottom just so it gets a little crust as well, but that also will help heat up the product on the inside.
Okay.
Especially if you're not using an oven.
Right.
But you don't want to flip it over and sear it for too long because it will make it very crispy and almost inedible.
Okay, great. If you have a pan that can withstand oven temperature and it doesn't have this type of a handle, do you finish a lot of the stuff in your oven while you're cooking at work?
In work, this is when we would put it in the oven. We would flip the duck breast right now, just to sear that and put it back on its fat side.
Right.
Put it in the oven for about 3 to 4 minutes at a 500-degree oven, and finish it.
Okay. Just for the sake of time here, we're probably going to have to start plating soon. So what could we do?
Okay, at this point I'm gonna flip the duck breast and the duck legs.
Okay.
And cook those for about another 2 minutes. And then in that fat, we're gonna pick up the broccoli rabe and the fingerlings while our duck breast is resting.
Excellent. Yeah, and you want the duck to rest because?
You don't want the blood to leach out of it. If you ever go to a restaurant and you get a steak and it's kind of lukewarm, that's the way I want my steak in a restaurant. That means they actually took the time to let the meat rest. What that does is let the blood go back into the meat. If you go to a restaurant, you cut into your steak and it bleeds all over the place, it just came from direct heat, got put on the plate and brought out. They didn't let it rest, and your meat's actually gonna cook a little bit more and it's not gonna be as flavorful.
Right.
I'm gonna put the fingerlings in right now, and then we're gonna take out the duck breast and let that rest.
Okay.
We're just gonna put them in skin side down.
Yeah. That's great.
And they already have oil, salt, and pepper on them, so you don't need to add more oil, salt, and pepper. And it's also being infused with the duck and the duck fat and the duck legs, which were already cooked in salt and cured in salt and in oil. So I don't add much more flavor to it.
Right.
You can add more flavor when it's done cooking,
Yeah.
but you also want all the different flavors in each product to come through.
Excellent. So, on a doneness check on your duck, is it a similar check as for, say, a steak where you do the touch
Yes.
and feel?
Yes.
You know, the type of rare, medium rare, well done. There's a very simple technique, and it's really the finger and thumb technique. So each time you change a finger on your thumb, you will get right here in this muscle, it'll get hard, medium well, medium rare, and rare. I went backwards there. But, you know, if you practice that, or just before you want to see how far your meat is along, this is a great method, okay, without sticking a prong in to check internal temperature. Obviously, you can't do that with chicken, but for instance, on a duck or on a steak, that's a great indicator. So, do we have a plate here for plating,
we have a
Chef?
plate right behind you.
Okay. There we go. I'll take that from you. You can,
We're also gonna get cutting board.
okay. You know, the chef is, and I talked to him earlier about this, in a professional kitchen, when you put your cutting board down, there's generally a damp towel, whether it be a side towel, a cloth towel, or even a paper towel. Make sure that's damp and then set your cutting board down. What does that do? It makes a break so that as you're cutting, there'll be no slip and cut your hand. And it's a great technique to save a finger, okay? Can't tell you how great this smells. Those potatoes, I love a potato with I'm not a bit, even though my name's Murphy, I cannot stand mashed potatoes. But a potato cooked like this that has a little bit of a crust and seasoned well, I'm in heaven.
Now at this point, we're just going to turn the sauce up a little bit because it is going a little bit slower.
Okay.
And now all of our product's almost done. And then we're going to toss in the broccoli rabe right into the pan that you have next to you, Joe.
Oh, and you're going to put it in the sauce?
No, we're going to toss it right
okay.
into the pan. We're just turning
I'm
the heat
sorry.
up on that.
I didn't know what you were referring to. The broccoli rabe was next to me.
So we're just going to take this in, and same application. This has already been blanched ahead of time and grilled.
Right.
We're just going to put it right in there.
If you don't know how to get those fabulous green colors, I'll tell you the secret. You blanch them, okay, and then get them good and hot. Don't let them cook through. Take it out of your pan and put it into ice water to stop the cooking process, and you're going to have that really great green color. And then you can finish the cooking process as Chef is doing right now, and it's really reheating and just finishing that broccoli rabe. I love broccoli rabe. Yeah, to me it's a great, great taste. Okay, we've got this rolling pretty good here, so, you know, I can see this, that it really has cooked down quite a bit in this pan, okay, and as Chef had explained earlier, this is not a thick sauce. It's a very loose liquid sauce, correct? And if you wanted to make it a thick sauce, you'd be adding arrowroot flour or cornstarch.
Yeah, you
correct?
can make a slurry and thicken it up if you'd like. You could add a little bit of mashed potatoes if you have leftover mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
That's a good thickening agent. You got some leftover mashed potatoes from the day before. Throw it right in there, thickens the sauce up.
Wow, that's a new one
And
for
it's
me.
gluten-free as well.
Right. Wow, excellent. Okay. So, presentation is half of the eating process, the eye appeal. Can you folks see me through this cloud? So, if you notice, to me, it's just as important to watch the chef when he plates that meal, because when it comes out and it's put down in front of you, that's where the wow effect really begins, right?
Yeah, well, it's actually when I think it's coming to the table. If it smells good before you see it,
Right.
it's pretty good. If it looks good, it's even better.
Yeah, and the co-host doesn't mind if you just one-up them. It's okay with me. We've let our duck rest,
Yep.
right? Now, 3 minutes, 4 minutes?
Yeah, at least 3 minutes. Just depending on the size of the product. If it was
Right.
a rib roast, you're going to let it rest a little bit longer.
Right, right.
About 3 minutes.
Okay, super. Is there a weight factor to time? In other words, if it's a 10-pound roast, how long would you let it rest?
Usually about 30 to 40 minutes.
Right.
It also is going to carry over cooking,
Yeah.
which is a process of when the product's sitting there,
It's
the
still
internal
cooking.
temperature is still cooking it.
Right,
So
right.
that's why when we cook like a turkey, we always cook it a little bit under the designated temperature
Right.
and let it carry over a little bit.
Right, okay. We have to get this plated, Chef,
Okay.
if that's okay with you.
Yes, sir.
And you can finish your dish.
Okay, so we're going to build this plate right now. And come right out of this pan. I like to keep a little bit of the fat on it. If you didn't want to, you can take these and just pat them off with a towel or with a napkin,
Right.
such and such, while you're plating. So when we're plating in the restaurant, every dish that we make and create is done by the way we're going to presentate it on the plate. So it just doesn't also, we're not just going to put duck on the plate with some vegetable. We have to think of what the plate's going to look like when we put everything together.
Right.
And we can turn this off now.
Okay. Oh my God.
Everything
so
has
good.
height in our kitchen. There's a lot of stacking. It's more visually appealing to the customer or the person that's sitting at the table seeing the product walk through the dining room.
Yeah.
So we're going to take that duck leg, just going to put it over there.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like building a jigsaw puzzle.
Right.
Now this duck breast is rested, and now we're going to slice it on the bias. On the bias is to cut at an angle, as you can
And
see.
I noticed that every time we've done duck breast a few times in the last couple of years, it's always cut at an angle.
Yep.
And does that give more? It makes it look larger, like there's more volume. Does it have to do with tenderness?
A lot of the meat and stuff that we cut in the restaurant, you want to cut against the grain.
Right.
Which is when you cut it, it won't have straight lines with
Yeah,
the meat.
right.
And that's also for the doneness of the product, but also it's the edibleness of the product. A lot of products that you cut with the grain, you
Yeah.
can't chew them.
Right. Okay. Great tip. All right.
So we're going to take that, use a spatula. I'm going to use the knife because I am the trained professional here. Just put it underneath it, and what we're going to do, lay it on there, and we're just going to fan it out a little bit.
Yeah. This looks fabulous.
And we're actually going to take the sauce.
Okay, Chef.
We're just going to put a little over it. A lot of our products in our restaurant, we do not put the sauce directly on top of it, especially if you have a crispy skin or a rub or something to that effect, because we want everybody to be able to taste the product.
Right, and you want different feelings in your mouth for...
Yep, every time you take a bite of it, it's a different flavor profile.
Right.
So instead of, you're not just going to bite something and
Right.
have the sauce and then have the dry rub.
Right. I got to tell you, the sauce smells wonderful, and you've got your cherries there on the plate, so it really looks fabulous. And, I want to thank you, Chef. You did a great job. And we try to make this show as informative as possible. And you have done a great job. And I think we do have a live audience here. So, folks, what do you think? Did Chef do a great job? Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'd just like to close with thank you to the Mother Brook Art and Community Center on High Street in Dedham. We want to thank them for hosting this show. We certainly want to thank Isabella's Restaurant, a mainstay in Dedham Square for 19 years. And we have this wonderful chef, Chef John Mahoney, who's got years of experience. And we also want to thank Fornax, a wonderful artisan bread baker from Roslindale. And we have been serving dessert to our audience from Sugar Baking Company in West Roxbury. So we're grateful for those donations. And if you want to watch this show and try this recipe, you can take your laptop or your pad and go to the Chef's Table series.tv. You can print the recipe off the website and then replay the show and cook with the chef. And I'll leave my cell phone number. Call me. I'll be love to come over and have dinner with you. Thank you, Chef.
Thank you.
Hello everyone and welcome to this week's wine pairing. I'm Carol O'Connor. I am here with John Paul Kaminga. He is the wine sommelier and wine manager of Blanchard's Wines and Spirits in Jamaica Plain. Today I gave him the task of choosing a wine for John Mahoney. He's the chef at Isabella Restaurant in Dedham. John had made a dry rubbed duck breast in a cherry Agro Dolce sauce. And I'm sure there were tons of reds you could choose from, right?
Yeah. But with that cherry flavor, you'd want a red that had a lot of fruit, I think, to match up with that. And, with duck, I don't want to do anything sweet. I want to do something kind of dry with a nice crisp finish because duck is so fatty and so rich.
You're right.
You want something to kind of cut through that.
Yeah, because I know that he wanted the fat to make the sauce a little bit have more of a flavor to it.
Yeah.
So which one did you choose?
I chose a garnacha, otherwise known as grenache if it's from France. In this case, it's a grenache. The Altaroses is the name of the wine, and right underneath the name you see the alternate spelling that he's adopted, which is the Catalan spelling, so Granatxa. You see a lot of X's in Catalan words. He's also kind of trying to make it in a more traditional style, so what people would have been drinking in Catalonia, say 100 years ago, would have been more traditional. Now when you see grenache or garnacha from Catalonia, it tends to be really heavy, really spicy, almost too full-bodied for a lot of food. This is meant to be more fresh, kind of light, really drinkable.
So is this a Spanish wine?
It is Spanish, yep.
Okay.
Yep, from the region of Catalonia, which is kind of a pretty big region, traditionally would have spanned the border between France and Spain.
Okay. Let's try it.
Sure.
Ooh, what a pretty red wine.
Yeah, it's got that nice kind of ruby color. Not too dark, not too opaque, and he's not going for anything too heavy or too dark.
Oh, pretty color.
And you've got that deep kind of dark cherry flavor.
Definitely.
Which I thought.
Smell the cherries.
Yeah.
Oh, this will really go well with his sauce.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
His cherry Agro Dolce-Chef sauce.
Yeah. So this is the same grape that you'd find in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, but in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, the Grenache will be much heavier, generally much heavier, much richer, kind of higher in alcohol. This has a really nice acidity for a Spanish wine. I thought would go well with the richness of the duck.
It has tannins too.
Yeah, it's got some tannins
I can feel it on my tongue.
Yep.
Which you taught me prior.
Yeah. You get that kind of sandpapery feeling on your tongue and the sides of your mouth. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, this is a nice wine.
I'm glad you like it. It's one of my favorites right now.
I can see why. Like I always say, it's a wine that you can have, just hanging out with friends or your significant other.
Yeah.
Or by yourself reading a book after a long day. Yeah, this is very enjoyable. Good choice.
Thank you.
As always. You always pick the great wines to go with these amazing dishes from the chefs. So everyone, this has been this week's wine pairing for Isabella Restaurant's John Mahoney. He made the dry rubbed duck breast with the leg in a cherry Agro Dolce sauce. So we will see you next week.
Hi, I'm Margery Gann and I work at Ethos in Jamaica Plain. We work with elders and people of all ages with disabilities, and we provide, among other services, home-delivered meals, community cafes, and in-home nutrition consultation services. I'm a registered dietitian, wife and mom for over 30 years, and in that time I've learned some pretty good ways of getting my family to eat well, and I hope I can relay those to you as well. And today I want to talk about greens, particularly dark green leafy vegetables, because dark green leafy vegetables are full of something called phytonutrients or phytochemicals. And what those are active compounds in the vegetables that benefit human health. They're not vitamins themselves, but they do help with your continued well-being. One of the nicest things about this kind of a vegetable is that it's very low calorie. So a cup of chopped kale is a mere 33 calories. It's also loaded with nutrients. Something like 600% of your vitamin K for the day, 200% of the vitamin A you need, and in the case of kale, over 100% of your daily need for vitamin C. It's also a good source of minerals, copper, manganese, and phosphorus. And on top of it all, most of these even taste good. So what else could you ask for? So, and when we look at these, one of the reasons people tend to shy away from some of these is because they're in the cabbage family, the so-called cruciferous vegetables. And that means if you've ever cooked cabbage, you cook it too long and your house is full of that horrible sulfur smell. Well, you don't need to do that because cooking these does not require a long cooking time as long as you do some of the work before you ever cook them. What you're going to do is you're going to cut away some of the stem. Then you're going to roll it just like this. Sometimes you can roll two at once. And you're going to chiffonade, as the chefs would say. I would say cut very, very thinly. And if you're really going to be sensible about it, instead of doing it the way I'm doing it, you're going to roll up a couple of them, get out your food processor, put it in the chute just like this, and you'll have mountains of perfectly shredded collards in an instant. Then steam it lightly, and because you've cut it into such nice thin little strips, it really tenderizes very, very quickly and keeps its beautiful dark green color. Dress it with a little olive oil, garlic, salt, and pepper, and you've got yourself an absolutely fabulous main part of the plate vegetable. If you want even a prettier vegetable, how about Swiss chard? Chard has these beautiful ribs, and they'll stay nice and red, look really pretty on the plate. Sometimes you can get chard with yellow and white and red, even better looking. And here we have curly kale, another powerhouse. Now, spinach, and we have some fresh spinach here. Spinach is an interesting one because spinach on its own is pretty fluffy. And people say, oh, I'm going to eat a spinach salad, I'm going to get all my nutrients. One of the problems is, face it, how many leaves of fresh spinach are you going to eat at a time? This whole pile of fresh spinach is actually the same amount as in this one little frozen package, both about 10 ounces. So you can see spinach shrinks incredibly when you cook it. So you have to think about that in terms of portions and the amount of nutrients you're getting. One of the nutrients that's also in all of these is calcium. But you do have to be careful because the calcium in these particular vegetables are also found with oxalates. And oxalates are naturally occurring compounds, and those oxalates will bind the calcium. So you're not going to get the full benefit of the calcium. So for a good dose of phytonutrients, vitamin K, vitamin A, vitamin C, stick with those nice, healthy, dark green leafy vegetables. I'm Margery Gann, and I'm here for Chef's Table, and thank you for joining me.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Chef's Table series restaurant interview. I am here in Denham Square, specifically at Isabella restaurant. With me is Chef John Mahoney. So John, thanks for being on the restaurant interview segment with me
Thanks for having
this
me.
afternoon. So tell me about Isabella, and what I find amazing is that it's been around since 1995.
Yeah, we're entering our 19th year of business. We've got a lot of ties to the community.
Yep.
Pretty well known.
Yes, because I run the Taste Denham, and for the last 4 years, you guys have been a very integral one of the participating restaurants. So you've been here how many years?
I'm entering my fourth.
Fourth year. And tell me about the cuisine that's here, because it's always packed like Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, and I know you're open for lunch as well.
Yeah, it's a new American cuisine. We range from everything from Italian food to French food to Asian fusion. No
wow.
staples, pretty much on the menu.
Name me some of the dishes that people will see on your menu this coming season.
We'll probably have some sort of duck on the menu. We're in the process of actually writing the menu right now.
Oh, good. That you would it be something like you just did on the show?
Some version of it.
Yeah.
Dry rub duck breast or confit duck leg. Something.
My favorite
to
word,
that effect.
confit. And what other types of dishes?
Pasta dish. We'll probably keep our short rib on, just a different version of it. Seems to sell really well. Our signature dish is one of them is the Hong Kong. It's been on the menu probably about 15 years.
What's that? I
It's,
never saw that one.
It's an Asian noodle dish.
Yep.
You can get it with either chicken, vegetarian, or shrimp.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's amazing. So I see that I love the ambiance in here. Did some changes occur in the last, like,
About 4.5
6
years ago, we extended the bar. It was only a 5-seat bar. Now it's a 12 to 15-seat bar.
Wow. Yeah, looks, I like it.
Expanded it and decreased the dining room a little bit. Did a little decor update.
Yeah. Well, people tend to gravitate to the bar, I think, whether it's a one person or 3 people as well. And I like the design of it as well. It's perfect. So tell me any some other types of dishes people can see here.
We're always heavy on seafood.
You are?
Yeah, about 33% of our menu,
Yeah.
entree-wise, is seafood. We always run a chef entree and a seafood special every night.
Now, did you do any special events here or anything?
We do private events once in a while. We've done a wine dinner. We're starting to book another wine dinner
Oh, yeah,
coming
people
up
love
soon.
those. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, John, what other restaurants have you worked at prior to becoming the chef here at Isabella?
I worked at Bellwood in Jamaica Plain. I worked at Gourmet Caterers. I worked at the Old Irish Ale House, and I also worked for Todd English at Kingfish Hall.
Wow, John, you've been a lot of places.
Yep.
And I'm sure you have a lot to do with the writing and the recipes of the dishes here?
Yep.
Perfect. Well, we're going to explore them. Joe, Frank, and I, and whoever else we can get to come here. Definitely. So everyone, this has been the restaurant interview segment of the Chef's Table series. I'm Carol O'Connor with John Mahoney, chef of Isabella Restaurant, located in Denham Square. So we will see you next week.
You want to simmer almost like a
Yep,
braising liquid?
We're gonna let that simmer, and that's gonna reduce by half. It's not gonna get thick. This is a very thin sauce to go with the duck, and it's kind of very sweet. It's got a little acidity to it, which is gonna offset some of the spices that we have from the dry rub. But as you can see,
Oh, nice.
there's almost no fat. The fat's reduced by about half the amount that it was before. And you're starting to get a crust. It's actually gonna be really crispy on the outside of that duck. Just put it underneath it, and what we're gonna do, lay it on there, and we're just gonna fan it out a little bit.
This looks fabulous.
The Chef's Table series is shooting on location in cities and towns across Massachusetts. If you would like to suggest your favorite restaurant or attend a live taping of the show, please visit thechefstableseries.tv.